we'll do the live thing first. Like, hey everybody, welcome back to the Bigmark podcast. It's me, your host, Bigmark. If it's your first time watching, welcome. If not, welcome back. Like I always say, if you ever want to reach out to the podcast, let us know if you want to hear about a new topic. Let us know how you feel about one of the episodes, or if you even want to come on as a guest. Let me know. Hit us up in the DMs. Hit us up in the comments if you're watching on YouTube. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Wherever else you're watching, make sure you're following along. Tell your friends, let everyone know. It's the best way you can possibly support the podcast. But like I said, hit us up in the comments or in the DMs at the Bigmark Pod or at the Bigmark Podcast on our Twitter or Instagram. And again, thank you all for being here. If you did want to go that extra mile, check out our Patreon, patreon.com/thebigmarkpod. And there's a couple tiers there, different ways you can support there. So thank you all for listening. Thank you all for being here. Could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're here tonight. So thank you. This morning, tomorrow, whenever you're listening. Super excited to do this episode. Like I'm always, I always say that. But it's on a movie. I feel like I haven't seen a movie in a little bit. It hasn't been that long, but I feel like I haven't gone to the movies in a while. So went out to the theater with the old man, with my pops, and we saw the new Superman movie. Superman, the new James Gunn Superman, which was really, really well done, I thought. Super fun. It was really nice to see with my pops, and it kind of actually opened my eyes a little bit to, I think, some of the bigger meanings behind this movie coming out and the significance of it. And it's a really good film. It's kind of a little bit of a twist, a little bit of a turn, hopefully an adjustment in the right direction, in my opinion, for the DC cinematic universe, so to speak. Because I'm sure a lot of you might agree with me. If you're watching this episode, you're probably interested in all these movies just like I am. And, DC and Marvel, they've kind of taken slightly different routes as far as how they're approaching their this whole new, basically since 2008 or whatever, if you want to call it, for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, when Iron Man came out. And then I guess it would have been Man of Steel would have been around the same time, I think, not too much after, but that was kind of the launching of the DC universe. And Marvel kind of took this approach right off the bat that, we're going to try to create these, because I think there's always this, I've said this before, I'm sure in other episodes, there's always this choice you have to make when you're recreating a superhero story. You have to choose this. You have to make this decision, make this distinction between how real is this world that we're creating. Of course, we're creating movies on film. This is no longer on fucking comic book paper where you can draw anything you want. It's no longer an animated series either, where you can come up with almost any conceivable idea. This has to be relatively practical. So it gives you this option. How practical is it going to be? How much of this world that we're going to be presenting to people is going to seem like, is this plausible? How real is it? And I feel like DC went down the road of, let's try to make this as if this is a real world, and how possible is it for these superheroes, or as they chose to call them, metahumans, superhumans, exist? How this is, gives some idea that maybe this is real, or there's cosmic powers that are a little bit more rooted in this. Like, what would it actually look like? What would it actually be? Where Marvel is kind of a little bit more beholden to, the suspension of disbelief, and also it's a little funnier and a little bit more tongue-in-cheek. I mean, look at Deadpool. But the whole idea of kind of like, it's a superhero movie, it's comic book, like there's going to be like kind of goofy, stretches of the imagination. Now, mind you, I think the other thing that Marvel did that trumps DC is that they have Captain America, and Captain America is kind of their trump card, because a lot of those Marvel movies that are Captain America movies, they're basically like spy or like action movies, Mission Impossible, Jason Bourne shit. Like, it's all the same. It just happens to be Captain America and his villains that aren't even that fucking outlandish, right? So you can kind of like have these like slightly more serious movies without trying to be like, oh, how possibly could there be like these interwar politics happening? Because that's essentially what the comics are. And then you have Thor, which is probably on the other end of things, where it's a god. The guy is a fucking Norse god. It's all of it's pretty fucking made up. So I think especially like Ragnarok, and you know, when Taika Waititi kind of got a hold of things, he really leaned into that kind of comedic aspect of Thor, which he has, but he also has a extremely serious side, of course. But anyway, they have this ability to kind of go all these different ways, and they really went into like the single movies, where DC kind of really focused in on the Justice League characters, mostly, you know, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, the Flash. I think that's everyone. I said Batman and Superman, right? Anyway, Man Martian, who they haven't even really talked about much. It was like barely in the Justice League, and then Green Lantern too. So anyway, they didn't really go that route. They went into the Justice League. They had all these other movies, and they just kind of all weren't amazing. They were really dark. Literally, like the visuals of them were like really dark. They turned the fucking contrast on to fucking zero. And they just didn't grab me. Like, Man of Steel was pretty good. I think Henry Cavill's a fantastic. I think the casting's phenomenal. That's one of the saddest parts about all this DC shit, is like they have so many things right, but so many things wrong at the same time. Henry Cavill, I think, was a phenomenal Superman. He looked just like he's kind of the perfect Superman. But again, the films that he was in a little bit darker. You know, Batman versus Superman was kind of fucking weird. The original Justice League was shite. The Snyder Cut was sick. But again, you know, you could kind of see after that, you know, when they started doing the Suicide Squads, and, you know, I guess the Joker with Joaquin is kind of a part of this in a weird way, but kind of not. Anyway, they're still trying to keep this shit alive. But I think right now, at least with this latest Superman movie, which is always a great option, and again, reflective of kind of them trying to launch things with Man of Steel, is coming up with this new Superman movie, which was kind of supposed to be another sequel of Man of Steel. But, you know, Henry Cavill either aged out, or just like his contracts, he started doing other shit because these guys fucking were spinning their tires, and then COVID, and then there were strikes, and all types of shit was happening. So don't get me wrong, but I'm almost certain that James Gunn, you know, being one of the co-CEOs of you know, the DC Productions or whatever the fuck, part of Warner Brothers kind of thing. He's actually what does it say here? He is co-CEO of DC Studios. So, you know, Gunn is right in the fucking middle of the thing. He's in the mix. So I'm seeing this as a way, and, you know, I have no insider sources here. I'm seeing this as a way that they're going to try to revive the DC cinematic universe and kind of go in a little bit of a different direction, because it was definitely funnier. I mean, again, a la Suicide Squad, kind of that James Gunn, kind of a little bit more whimsical approach. He's really kind of like, this is a fucking superhero movie, man. This is a comic book movie. And he really, really was beholden to a lot of like the tropes and a lot of the things that were in the books, or the movies and the comic books and the TV shows, you know, Smallville, shit like that even. They went, you know, Henry Cavill, like I said, was no longer Superman. David Cornsweet played Clark Kent Superman. He is a great choice. I haven't really seen him in many other things. I think he was in House of Cards, was the last thing I saw him in. But I don't really recall him that much. I just saw that in the research. But this Superman's about 25, so he's a little younger, but he's not like quite like Smallville Clark Kent, but he's not quite as old as Henry Cavill's Clark Kent. So again, he's a little bit younger. He's still kind of finding his way, and I thought Cornsweet did an awesome job of showing this really almost painfully naive Superman, because that's sometimes what he is. He's almost so fucking good, and that was like what I felt like they almost didn't really show in Batman versus Superman. They just made Superman being this like righteous, like we must do the good shit. Which, yeah, I know I'm splitting hairs here, but there was almost something where Superman didn't even know he didn't even think about like the worst way to do, or how people could be evil or bad things, or didn't even think. He was just always in the good, super positive, and it's great and it's nice. And I think it's a great way to usher in a younger generation, because I think it was starting to alienate the younger generation with some of these DC movies. They weren't like super kid friendly, I got to admit. So anyway, I think that Corn Sweat did a really good job of showing that noble naivete that Superman has. And also he was a great Clark Kent, because you kind of have to be both, right? It's like Bruce Wayne and Batman. You get judged on both, and I thought he was a good Clark Kent too. He changed his voice like Christopher Reeves did, where he kind of had a little bit of a different voice, and when he was Clark Kent versus when he was Superman. He talked about the glasses, which is kind of funny because they didn't really talk about that too much, but apparently those glasses are actually, like in the comic book, Superman as Clark Kent wore those glasses, and everyone would be like, come on, man, obviously that's fucking Superman, can't you fucking tell? But apparently those eyeglasses, I don't know how he would have fucking got these anyway, but this is like classic 50s Superman, like when he first came out, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound type shit. A lot of things kind of changed over the years, but the glasses actually like somehow hypnotize people or something, or like changed the way that they actually perceived Clark Kent and didn't see him as Clark Kent. They saw him as someone anyway. But there was a lot more. Again, it was more lighthearted, a little bit more comical. I thought the only parts that were a little bit more serious were between Clark and Lois, which was kind of nice. You know, that's the serious bit. I think Clark's parents were really interesting. You know, Martha and Jonathan Kent played really well. I think they almost like flipped their gender roles a little bit, which is very nice. Jonathan was like very emotional and, you know, wore his heart on his sleeve, and Martha was a little bit more kind of like a farmer mom kind of thing. And, you know, it was interesting, the Smallville scenes, and he went back there often. Again, he was young, right? He's still kind of getting his shit together. And that was another thing that they did really well. Superman was all over the motherfucking place. Like he's always going from one place to the other, because he can get everywhere really quickly, right? So, although the flying was a little bit weird, I thought the flying almost looked goofy. Like, I know it's supposed to be a little bit more lighthearted, but like the way the camera work was like right in his grill. But it was cool. It was very realistic. Like, you know, it showed him like flying through rain and getting like frost on his face and shit when he was like flying really fast. But again, super classic Superman. I think overall this whole movie, James Gunn was kind of essentially remaking the first Superman from the 70s. And then Superman 2, it's almost like an amalgam, the Richard Donner movies, which he did a, you know, I mean, in my opinion, I think he did a great job. It was almost like he kind of like rethought them in a whole new way. And, you know, the Fortress of Solitude was very similar to Superman, the original Superman Christopher Reeves joints. They had the robots in the Fortress of Solitude, which is always a bit of a throw off, because you're kind of like, what the fuck does Superman need robots for? But they're like from Krypton, and they kind of help him out and shit. So that's groovy. They did a really good job at that. Speaking of Lois Lane, Rachel Brosnahan. Sorry, Rach. Played Lois Lane. She did a really good job. I've seen her in a bunch of stuff. She is probably I wonder what one of her most famous credits would be. But I remember seeing her in a bunch of stuff on TV. Like, she was in Gossip Girl and CSI Miami and stuff like that. Orange is the New Black and Grey's Anatomy and things like that. She was also in House of Cards. But, you know, I've seen her around in a bunch of stuff. And then she's been in tons of movies too. You know, The Courier was one. Patriots Day. Interesting. Yeah, I feel like I've seen her in so many different things. Theater even. But she doesn't have a ton of credits. I'm just kind of looking up her credits right now as we speak here. So anyway, I think she did a really good job. She did a really good Lois Lane. They did a kind of a, you know, it was nice to see that relationship and just kind of her steadfastness and their burgeoning relationship, Lois and Clark. They're, you know, just kind of getting to know each other. And she knows he's Superman. They didn't really do like the Superman story. Everyone knows how the fuck Superman came to Earth and did all that, but she does a really good job. And again, it's not just like kind of like a helpless, like damsel in distress Lois Lane, which I think sometimes actresses might like want to tread that line, but she always has a great, and like she was like flying spaceships at some points and shit. Tremendous. Nicholas Hoult played Lex Luthor, which I think he did an excellent job as Lex Luthor. I think, he definitely had that kind of Michael Rosenbaum Lex Luthor feel from Smallville, but I think he also I think he definitely pulled from Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor as well. I think he wasn't necessarily as cutting as like witty per se as Hackman's Lex Luthor. He was always kind of fucking throwing out one-liners, but he treated his fucking people poorly, treated his girlfriends like shit, which spoiler alert, was kind of his downfall at the end too. But again, just had this like very reckless, very jealous of Superman, just like really good. I think he fucking knocked it out of the park. Edie Gathegi from what I think he was actually already a superhero. He was in X-Men, or no, First Class maybe. He was that one superhero. Yeah, First Class. He was that one superhero. He could like absorb anything and like can turn into anything, like almost like the Elemental Man, who's also in this one. Spoiler. Again, spoiler alerts. I guess I should have put that out early. We're talking about the movie. I'm going to throw some fucking spoilers out there, so everyone watch the fuck out. But anyway, he plays Mr. Terrific, aka Michael Holt, who is like a really cool kind of like gadget superhero. He's got all these types of fucking gizmos and gadgets and spaceships and all this really cool stuff. And in fact, actually, Mr. Terrific is like from like Earth 1 or like Earth Prime. I can't remember how they talk about it in DC, but he's like from like the original Earth. So they might be setting up, a la Marvel Universe, where they had, all this multiverse saga happening. That also exists in the DC universe too, right? Like, I mean, this is just, all these multiverses are just, I think we've talked about this before. These multiverses are just kind of products of writing superhero comics, right? You can only write so many fucking stories about these guys. They can only live so fucking long, right? Like there's gotta be drama. So you can kill a superhero in this one universe, but it doesn't demolish the entire superhero franchise because you killed him. You can say, oh, in this universe, he's still alive, or in this universe, he's resurrected, or in this universe, he's a fucking totally different person. So anyway, super cool. And it just like completely magic wands. You could do whatever you want, right? So super cool. You can have different characters, you can have different actors. And now we're seeing it in the film world. You can have different actors playing the same character now, and it's not fucking weird, right? So anyway, Mr. Terrific is from like this in the DC universe. He's from like Earth Prime, which is like the main universe, kind of like Marvel's Earth 616, but like this main universe, because in the DC universe, there's like these infinite universes. There's like this whole storyline, Crisis on Infinite Earths, but like there's these infinite multiverses, and you can kind of pass through them through portals and other kind of shits. But different superheroes reside in these different universes, and of course they're just different iterations of themselves. Some of them have different storylines, some of them are evil, some of them are good, all these different things. But one of the tricks of the DC multiverse is that each universe has a finite amount of power for those given superheroes that reside in that universe. So if there's 100 superheroes that exist in that entire universe, they share that amount of power of that universe between 100 people. And in fact, so there's obviously like thousands of superheroes in a lot of these universes, or hundreds at least. But in one of the universes, there's actually only one superhero, and his name is Superman Prime. And he's like a 14-year-old kid. He's like a kid, but he has like all the power of this one universe, and eventually he's able to pass through other universes, and all the other Supermen and all the other people, other superheroes, Batman, of course, they're all worried that if he fucking loses it, he could probably take over all the universes. Anyway, maybe there's a nod to that. So heads up. I will admit, and I'll honestly give props to this movie. It didn't really feel like just a big setup, which unfortunately has been, the bane of a lot of superhero movies lately. That is just one big fucking setup, and they're just getting you ready for the next movie, and you're just gonna keep fucking watching movies, and this is fucking tremendous. So, there was, oh, interesting. Metamorpho. Oh, I thought it was the Elemental Man. Maybe that's a Marvel thing. Anyway, Anthony Carrigan, he plays Metamorpho, tremendous. He can make his body into different elements, which I wonder which element he turns his body into that maybe Lex Luthor makes him turn into so that he can control Superman. Again, I know we're past the spoiler alerts, but even if you're still here, it's kryptonite. Nathan Fillion plays the Guy Gardner Green Lantern, which is hilarious. I think he does an awesome job. He's kind of a little bit of a tweaked Green Lantern. I mean, Guy Gardner is kind of weird in the comics. Is Isabella Merced or Merced? I don't know how to say her last name. I'm sorry, Isabella. Plays Kendra Saunders or Hawk Girl, which is super cool to see. A Hawk person, either Hawk Man or Hawk Girl, Hawk Woman. So hopefully we'll see them later on, which is super cool. Skylar Gisondo plays an awesome Jimmy Olsen. And then Wendell Pierce, Bunk from The Wire. And then also whatever her name is, I guess, is it Rachel in the show? Anyway, whatever her name is in the show, her dad in Suits, played by Wendell Pierce, also plays Perry White in this movie, he's the great editor-in-chief of the Daily Planet. And again, everyone just plays really quintessential versions of all these characters. I think that they were all really inspired by the comics. I think James Gunn did a really good job of kind of being beholden to the comics. There was times, well, I guess a little bit more about the cast here. Bradley Cooper actually played Jor-El, the father of Superman. So when you see these flashbacks to Jor-El's messages to Superman, it's actually Bradley Cooper. It's not just an old Marlon Brando motherfucker. But anyway, like I said, all these different things, he's kind of let's stay beholden to the comics. Let's change it up a little bit, though. We're always used to seeing this 7-year-old Jor-El. He was a young man. Clark Kal-El was a baby when they sent him off. So there's chances he wasn't a fucking old man, and he didn't age anymore because his planet blew the fuck up. And he definitely made those messages at least even before Clark was born. So it was kind of cool that he kind of almost turned our heads on that a little bit more. I won't necessarily reveal the entire plot point, even though I've given out the spoiler alerts, but you should check out the movie when you can. It's super awesome. But again, there's monsters and stuff, and random, no real explanation of why this fucking giant thing is in the middle of Metropolis all of a sudden. It's just all right, superheroes got to go and fucking get to it, right? So it was very much just getting back to hey, this is a superhero movie. Don't fucking pretend this is supposed to be Schindler's List or something. This is not real. Let's just have fun. And it was a really fun movie, a really light movie, really, really good-hearted movie. And like I said, super fortunate to see it with my pops, because I think this is going to really usher in, it's almost like this link now between all these generations, because not only is it essentially a remake of those old movies, but it's that link of, the original Christopher Reeves fans, my dad's generation stuff, or Christopher Reeves peeps. And then I was in the Henry Cavill generation, I guess, if you will, for the big movies. I mean, Dean Cain is my Superman, I will admit sometimes. Lois and Clark, tremendous. And then obviously this Corn Sweat. Oh my God, I hope Corn Sweat, I think is how you say it. I'm so sorry. I just want to get everyone's name right. With having a fucked up last name, I always get Corn Sweat. David Corn Sweat, I think, is going to be a great Superman as things keep going. Hopefully this means also a new Batman. We'll see. All this, this new James Gunn fucking universe might be this whole new thing, right? So super exciting to see. Who knows what kind of storylines that this new Superman's going to usher in. So go check it out. Still in theaters as far as I know when this podcast comes out. But let me know what you think. Let me know if you've seen it already, and let me know what you think's going to happen. Thanks, y'all, for listening. We'll catch you later. Peace.